Hey there. I'm honestly grateful you're here watching this. And if you choose to hit that subscribe button, you won't know how much that means to me. All right, let's begin. The clock on the kitchen wall blinked 6:07 a.m. in faint crimson light. The air still carried the sour-sweet haze of bargain perfume, the kind of smell that turns regret into something you can taste. She stepped through the doorway like nothing in the world was wrong. Vanessa. My wife for 6 years. The same woman who used to kiss the side of my head before I left for work, humming to the rhythm of the coffee maker as it sputtered to life. But tonight, she drifted in barefoot, heels hooked by a finger, wearing a smile that stopped just short of her eyes. Long night? I asked, voice low, rough from sleeplessness. Clubs don't close early, Ryan, she muttered. This isn't Bible camp. That was it, the fracture line. The instant something inside me started to split apart. Every weekend now? I stepped into her path, blocking the fridge. You stumble in at sunrise, stinking of liquor and sweat, and I'm supposed to… what? Pretend it's fine? She rolled her eyes. Oh, spare me. Don't act like some martyr. You've always been boring. I'm finally having a life. A life? The word scraped my throat raw. That's what you call this? Disappearing for hours? Dressing like a stranger? Ignoring every call I make? She laughed, sharp, empty, and brushed past me. Maybe you're just too insecure to handle me having fun. Insecure? My grip tightened on the table's edge, knuckles whitening. You shut me out. You vanish without a word. And somehow, I'm the problem. Vanessa spun on her heel, arms crossed, her face hard as glass. You want honesty? She said flatly. You're safe, predictable, comfortable. Like a couch I've been stuck on too long, and I'm done sitting. There it was. Unpolished, merciless truth. I stood there in silence, watching the woman I once swore forever to shrug like she'd misplaced a library book she didn't care about. My teeth clenched to hold back what I wanted to scream, not out of fear of her, but fear of what would come out if I let go. She smirked. Is this the part where you play the victim again? Poor Ryan, right? I said nothing. She wasn't worth the sound. Great, she muttered, heading toward the bedroom. 2 hours till I have to wake up. The door slammed. The silence that followed roared louder than any fight. I collapsed into a chair, elbows on my knees, head buried in my palms. My jaw throbbed from clenching. My chest felt hollow, yet impossibly heavy. Through the blinds, a thin blade of sunlight cut across the dark kitchen tiles. That's when it hit me. Something inside had shifted. Permanent, unfixable. She was already gone, had been fading for months, and now, the last thread holding me to her snapped. The strangest part? I didn't yell, didn't throw anything, didn't even cry, because deep down I'd already known. For months, I'd been waking before dawn, quietly dressing, driving to the ad agency downtown, the only place left where I still felt human, useful, wanted. I made her coffee, packed her lunch, smiled at neighbors, kept the illusion alive long after the life behind it had vanished. But every time she stumbled home reeking of vodka and drugstore vanilla, swearing she'd just been dancing, another piece of me fractured. And that morning, it shattered completely. She didn't know it yet, but that sunrise, it was the last one we'd ever share as husband and wife. Ask yourself this. What do you do when the person you love looks you in the eye and says your very presence bores them? Stay tuned, because what happened in that kitchen wasn't an ending. It was ignition. By noon, sunlight flooded the living room, warming every surface except me. I felt nothing. Vanessa strolled out of the bedroom like the previous night hadn't even happened. Fresh showered, damp hair tucked behind her ears, wrapped in that navy robe she wore only on lazy Saturdays when she pretended to play house. She hummed softly while stirring pancake batter. Honey, do we have syrup? She called toward the fridge. I didn't answer, just kept folding clothes on the bed, slow, deliberate, the kind of folding you do to keep your hands from shaking. A minute later, she appeared in the doorway, coffee mug in hand, voice light. You're awfully quiet. Something wrong? Without looking up, I said, I'm staying at Mike's for a while. Silence. Heavy. Immediate. What? You heard me. A hollow laugh slipped out of her. You're seriously doing this? Over one night out? I zipped the bag. Number, I'm doing this because I'm done pretending there's anything left to fix. Her expression shifted. Not anger, not sorrow. Confusion, maybe. Like she'd suddenly lost control of the strings she thought she was pulling. Oh, come on, she said, stepping closer. We fight, we make up, that's what we do. No, I replied. That's what you do. I just let it happen. Her eyes flicked to the packed bag. So that's it? You're walking out? No, I said, meeting her gaze. You walked out a long time ago. I'm just finally following. She scoffed, tossed her hair back. But I saw it. That tiny flicker in her eyes. The first crack in her mask. Fine, she snapped. Go cry to Mike. Maybe you two can whine about how hard your life is. I slung the bag over my shoulder and headed for the door. Don't forget your toothbrush, she called after me, her voice dripping with sarcasm. I turned once. Already blocked you. Don't bother. Her mouth opened, but no words came. And then I was gone. The stairwell was quiet, that eerie quiet that lingers after disaster. Outside, Chicago's late autumn wind bit at my skin. Crisp. Honest. Mike's apartment was 10 minutes away, but it felt like crossing into another world. He opened the door in boxers and a t-shirt, half a sandwich in hand. No questions, just stepped aside to let me in. We sat on his battered couch, beers in hand, wrapped in the kind of silence only real friends understand. Finally, I spoke. I left her. He nodded. Good. She didn't even care, I muttered. She was making pancakes. Mike let out a short laugh, half disbelief. Man. Vanessa's always been a pro at pretending nothing's wrong. It's her damn superpower. I stared at the condensation trailing down my bottle. You think I overreacted? Overreacted? Mike shook his head. You're 5 months late. We sat there, letting the quiet stretch. His place smelled like stale pizza and drugstore air freshener. And somehow, it already felt more like home than my condo had in a year. I need to know, I said at last, what she's really been doing. Mike looked at me, and that's where the next part begins. You serious? Yeah. He lifted the bottle, took a long pull, throat working as he swallowed. Then we follow her. One night, just watch. You'll see for yourself. I didn't answer right away. Something twisted low in my stomach, a nauseating knot I couldn't shake. But then I saw her grin in my mind, that smug, effortless smile, flipping pancakes like nothing had scorched between us. My jaw tightened. I gave the smallest nod. Let's find out what she thinks I'm too weak to confront. This wasn't revenge. It was proof. Mike's apartment sat crammed above a dusty record shop in Logan Square, a single-bedroom relic where every board groaned underfoot. The radiator hissed like it hated being alive, and the air smelled faintly of soy sauce layered over pine cleaner. But unlike my condo, it had one priceless commodity: silence. We spent the night in that silence, drinking bottom-shelf beer and barely speaking. At some point, Mike tossed me an old pair of sweatpants. Congrats, he said with a crooked grin. You've officially joined the club, divorced guy attire. For the first time in days, I almost laughed. Not much, but real. He cracked open another beer, dropped onto the sagging couch beside me, and powered up his battered laptop. So, he asked, how do we run this? Run what? Don't play dumb, Holmes. Surveillance. You're actually serious about this? You waiting for some miracle instead? The pizza box on the coffee table was already cooling, grease bleeding into the cardboard. I stared at it while chewing, and for reasons I couldn't explain, it tasted like freedom. I don't want to be that guy, I muttered. Mike tilted his head. Ryan, you already walked out, packed your things, blocked her number. You're not that guy anymore. You're the guy who deserves to know. You sure about that? I asked quietly. I've seen how she treats you. You don't need hope, you need the truth. Hope. I hadn't realized I'd been gripping that word so tightly until he ripped it out of me. Part of me thought she'd come after me, apologize, confess, anything. Just one sign that what we had wasn't entirely disposable. But she hadn't called, hadn't texted, hadn't even checked if I made it to Mike's alive. By sunset, my mind was made up. All right, I said, one night, we follow her, just once. Mike grinned, pure mischief lighting his face. He twirled his spare car keys. We'll take mine. Yours stands out too much. You're enjoying this a little too much, I muttered. Always wanted to tail someone for a noble cause, he said, smirking. We picked Friday, her routine night. She always called it going out dancing, blowing off steam, words that suddenly sounded like excuses. Until then, I tried to keep my head, worked remote, ate in silence, slept in short bursts, nerves taut like a soldier waiting for orders. Not from fear, from the unsettling calm of finally leaving. And for the first time in months, I didn't just question her. I questioned me. Who was I without her? Because betrayal hurts, sure, but nothing cuts deeper than realizing how long you've been betraying yourself by staying. Friday arrived colder than the forecast promised. Wind like razors sweeping Chicago streets. Clouds pressed low and heavy, threatening rain that never fell. We parked a block away from the club, Mike's ancient Honda humming until we killed the engine. The place was called Glass. All chrome and shadows, curated exclusivity, the kind of bar that pretended to keep people out but gladly swallowed anyone desperate enough to disappear inside. There, Mike muttered, nodding toward the line. That jacket? That's her. I leaned forward, eyes narrowing past the blur of street lamps and passing taxis. Vanessa. Wrapped in the fake leather jacket she used to wear on our anniversaries, like muscle memory. Dark hair pinned up, bare neck exposed, almost daring someone to notice. And she wasn't alone. A man stood next to her, late 20s maybe, clean cut, careful about how the world saw him, shirt unbuttoned just enough to show off hours in the gym. He laughed at something she said, hand grazing the small of her back. The way I used to. She see him a lot? I asked, voice low. Mike shrugged. Look at her. She's comfortable. This isn't new. We slipped down an alley to the side of the building, settling into a patch of shadow beneath ivy-strangled windows streaked with grime. The bass from inside pulsed like a muted heartbeat. Through the glass, the lounge lay in perfect view. Vanessa at the bar leaning close to him, their shoulders touching, her head tilted back mid-laugh, lips parted, fingers tracing the rim of her glass, slow, deliberate. She whispered something. He smiled. She touched his arm. Right then, I didn't need photos, didn't need recordings. This wasn't evidence. It was a wound I'd remember forever, a scar that would outlast everything. You good? Mike asked. I kept my eyes on her. Yeah. No anger? He said. No, I answered, just clarity. Because this stopped being about cheating a long time ago. It wasn't about love anymore either. It was about dignity. Watching her toss mine aside so easily snapped something inside me, sharp, final. Vanessa hadn't been my home in a long time. Maybe never had been. I'm done, I whispered. Last time I follow her anywhere. You sure? Mike asked. Yeah. Because losing someone you love is bad enough. But realizing you lost yourself trying to keep them, that's worse. And for the first time in forever, I felt something close to free. The next day hung heavy and gray. A Midwest sky caught between rain and restraint. I barely slept. Her laugh, her touch kept looping in my head, but I wasn't shattered anymore. I was sharpening. By mid-afternoon, Mike shrugged into his jacket, tossed me the spare keys. You sure about this? I nodded. I don't want payback, just a face. He understood. We drove back to the club, avoiding the front. Mike knew the layout. His band had played an upstairs gig years ago. He knew where the staff parked, where smokers slipped out, where secrets stayed hidden. We waited behind the building, wedged between a dumpster and a crumbling brick wall, the air thick with damp concrete and stale shame. Didn't take long. The guy from last night, same pressed shirt, black jeans, ego muted in daylight, stepped out around 4, probably late lunch, maybe another drink to blur whatever he was running from. He looked smaller under the sun, his confidence dimming outside the shadows. Mike stepped out first. I followed. "Hey," Mike called. The guy froze, eyes darting between us. "You were with a woman last night," I said, voice flat. He blinked. "Vanessa?" "Good." He knew her name. "She's married." Color drained from his face. I didn't know," he stammered. "I swear, she told me she was single, said her ex was out of the picture." I watched him squirm, and for the first time it didn't give me any satisfaction at all. "Just to be clear, you really trust her?" I asked quietly. He froze for a second before shaking his head. "Not anymore." Mike leaned back against the wall, arms crossed tight. "Then stay the hell away," he said, voice flat and cold. The guy nodded quickly, shame written all over him. "Yeah, of course." He glanced at me, guilt dragging down his face. "I'm sorry, man." I didn't answer. Part of me wanted to swing on him, not because he was the villain here, but because seeing him felt like staring at a reflection I didn't want to admit was mine. He was living in a space I used to claim as my own. But the truth? He wasn't the problem. She was. I turned my back and walked away without a word. Mike followed, footsteps echoing against the alley walls. Neither of us spoke until we reached the car. "You handled that way better than I would have," Mike muttered. "I'm not here to punish him," I said. "Just end it." I rolled the window down, letting the icy wind whip across my face. It hurt, but in a good way, sharp, alive, better than the stagnant silence I'd been drowning in for months. Vanessa's face didn't even flicker through my mind. What I carried away from that alley wasn't fury. It was something quieter, bitter, yes, but clean. And for now, clean was enough. Monday morning. I walked into the courthouse with my jaw set. Divorce papers already signed and tucked under my arm. No suit, no ceremony, just jeans, a hoodie, and the weight of someone finally awake after a long, ugly dream. No ring, no hesitation. Inside, the air was somehow colder than the street outside. Beige walls, buzzing fluorescent lights. A clerk took the papers without looking up. "You'll get the court date in the mail," she said flatly. "Thanks," I replied, though I wasn't sure if I meant it or if the word was just muscle memory. Walking out, I felt lighter. Not happy. Happiness was still a long way off, but lighter. That same afternoon, I closed our accounts, canceled the credit cards, and took her name off the lease. Everything we'd built turned into a checklist. Separated, signed, archived like dead weight cut from bone. That's when the messages started. "Vanessa, so you're really doing this? Over a couple of late nights?" I ignored it. "Vanessa. Wow. Playing the victim must be fun, huh?" Silence. "Vanessa. Hope she's hotter than me." That one almost made me laugh. Almost. Instead, I blocked her. I didn't need her voice in my pocket anymore. Didn't need her claws digging for leverage. I walked to a nearby park and sat under a half-bare tree, phone in my hand, silence sharp enough to taste. Years of checking in, remembering anniversaries she forgot, making sure she was okay. Gone. And I didn't miss any of it. That night, Mike handed me a beer without a word. No toast, no congratulations. We sat on his rooftop watching the L train rattle by in the distance, city lights bleeding into the cold night air. "I think I finally understand," I said. "Understand what?" Mike asked. "What it means to choose yourself." His grin was slow, knowing. "Took you long enough." I looked at the skyline, at how the city kept moving no matter whose heart got shattered. "I feel like I should be angrier," I admitted. "But I'm not. I'm just done." "That's not nothing," Mike said. "That's freedom." Maybe he was right. Maybe this was what freedom looked like. Grief without screaming, pain that didn't beg for an audience. Just a man, finally unhooked from the weight of pretending. For the first time in forever, I wasn't wondering who I was to her. I was wondering who I might be without her. That was the better question. Mike never blended his worlds, friends in one corner, family in another, work sealed off in its own lane. So when he said his cousin was coming over, I didn't think much of it. Same rooftop, same folding chairs, same beer-slick table. The wind still cut like late autumn knives, and I liked it that way. The openness felt lighter somehow. "She's cool," Mike said, cracking open a beer. You'll like her. Just don't be weird. I raised a brow. When am I ever weird? Ryan, he deadpanned, you apologize to mannequins when you bump into them. Fair. Then I heard her voice before I saw her. Wow, this place hasn't changed since high school, she said. Playful but sharp enough to slice through the wind. Ellie. She stepped out onto the rooftop like she owned it. Confident, bright-eyed, unfazed by rusted furniture or Mike's questionable playlist. Shoulder-length curls brushing her jacket, leather worn soft with history. Ellie Ryan, Mike mumbled, waving his bottle lazily. She gave me a quick once-over, not flirty, not rude, just assessing. So you're the famous roommate, she smirked. Guess you're real. Apparently, I said, faint smile tugging at my mouth. And you're the cousin Mike can't shut up about. She rolled her eyes. Please, he only name-drops me when he wants to borrow my car. We sat, beers in hand, city breathing all around us. Ellie was easy to talk to, sharp humor, quick wit, but never cruel. She asked real questions, the kind that made you feel heard. When I mentioned the divorce, she didn't flinch. No pity, no gasp, just took it in stride. Vanessa? She asked, sipping casually. The one with the filtered selfies and cryptic captions every Wednesday? I nearly choked on my beer. Yeah, I coughed. That's her. Ellie grinned. Figures. We laughed, hard, real. Something in me loosened. She leaned forward, elbows on her knees. So, what's next? Big plan? I stared at her. At the skyline. At the empty space inside me where fear used to live. I just want to feel like myself again. She nodded slowly. That's a good start. Silence followed. Not awkward, not hollow. More like aligned. Then she nudged my knee lightly. You've got good eyes, she said out of nowhere. I blinked. What? Your eyes, she clarified. Honest, like they couldn't lie if they tried. I looked away. They've seen too much lately. Good, she said softly, leaning back with a knowing smile. Means they're ready for better things. Maybe it was the beer, or the wind, or the way the city lights made everything feel possible. But for the first time in months, I didn't feel broken. I felt seen, not as Vanessa's husband, just me. And that night, I didn't dream about what I'd lost. I dreamed about what might come next. By Thursday, my court date was set, papers filed, heart strangely steady at the thought of releasing it all. It wasn't victory I felt, just relief, a long breath after months of holding it in. That morning, Ellie showed up at Mike's place with 2 coffees, that same spark in her eyes, half mischief, half certainty. So, today's the day, she said, handing me a cup. Yeah, I murmured, watching steam curl into the cold air. Just gotta drop them off. Need backup? She asked, sipping hers. I blinked. You'd come with me? Why not? She shrugged. You told me she still thinks you're lost, staggering through the wreckage. Maybe it's time to flip the script. That was when Ellie tilted her head, mischief sparking in her eyes. I want front row seats to this, she murmured. A disbelieving laugh escaped me, rough and quiet. You're enjoying this way too much. She leaned in close, voice dropping like a secret. You tiptoed around a woman for years who wouldn't even notice if you bled. Time she learned a lesson. I hesitated, 1 heartbeat, 2, then nodded. Fine, but no drinks in anyone's face. No dramatics. Ellie raised her hand like she was taking an oath. Scout's honor. The ride over was silent, but not tense. More like a calm pact, an unspoken understanding stitched between us. There was even a spark buried somewhere in that quiet, though neither of us dared name it. When we pulled into the lot of the apartment I used to call home, Ellie glanced at me. You good? Strangely, I was. Yeah. Good, she said, already pushing her door open. Let's make this unforgettable. Stepping inside felt like stepping back in time. The same fake marble counters, the same coffee ring staining the table, the same faint scent of lavender detergent buried under the heavy sweetness of Vanessa's perfume, curated, overwhelming, unmistakable. And there she was, Vanessa, perched on the armrest like a queen in a portrait, flanked by two friends. One I recognized, the blonde she always dragged into fights mid-argument, and the other was new, scrolling through her phone like she couldn't care less. Their laughter when we entered wasn't friendly. It was sharp, barbed, meant to wound before words were even exchanged. "Well, look who it is," Vanessa drawled. "The runaway husband returns. Couldn't stay gone, huh?" Her friends snickered behind her. Ellie slid up beside me, saying nothing. I held out the envelope. "What's this?" Vanessa asked, still smiling that daggered smile. "Divorce papers," I said. "Signed, filed, done." Silence. Just long enough to sting. Then she scoffed. "You're serious? You think walking in here with your little parade makes you look strong?" She crossed her arms, lips curling. "You look pathetic. Dragging your rebound here to prove something?" I didn't respond, but Ellie did. She stepped forward and kissed me. Not soft, not staged. A kiss with intent, with heat, with fire. A kiss that froze the entire room in place. Even I stood stunned. When I looked back at Vanessa, the smirk was gone. Her friends weren't laughing anymore either. The blonde blinked, the other girl raised an eyebrow. I extended the envelope again. "I know everything," I said quietly. Vanessa's hand trembled as she took it. Ellie straightened her jacket with calm precision. "It's been real, Ness," she said evenly. "But loyalty's never been your strength, has it?" We turned and walked out. I didn't look back. The chill outside stung my face, but I barely felt it. My chest pounded like I'd just won a game I didn't even realize I'd been playing. Beside me, Ellie's grin sparked with pure mischief. "Told you I'd do good exits," she teased. And for the first time since it all began, I laughed. Loud, unguarded, real. Because that kiss, it wasn't just for her, it was for me. Proof that I was done being tolerated, that I was finally choosing myself. Behind us, Vanessa's door slammed shut, but the silence that followed, the one that mattered, fell only when we reached the sidewalk. Not tension, not grief, finality. The quiet after a storm everyone saw coming. It seeped into my bones and whispered, "It's over." Ellie shoved her hands into her jacket pockets and turned to me. "You sure you're okay?" I nodded slowly. "Yeah, I thought it'd feel like a funeral, but it doesn't. Feels like I buried a lie." She smirked. "Now you're starting to sound like someone with boundaries." I chuckled, rubbing the back of my neck. She didn't even look surprised. "That's the thing about people like her," Ellie said softly. "They never believe you'll actually leave." We crossed the street and climbed into Mike's car. I stared out the windshield, watching the building shrink in the rearview mirror. "She really thought I'd crawl back," I muttered. "Because you always did before," Ellie replied, tucking one leg under herself. "She fed you crumbs and called it a feast. You just stopped showing up to the table." That landed hard. We drove in silence for a while, the city sliding past like muted film. Neon signs flashing, dogs tugging leashes, life moving on, oblivious to the hearts breaking behind second-story windows. Back at Mike's place, I lingered in the hallway before speaking. I think I needed her to see I was done, not hear it, not read it in a text, see it. Ellie nodded. She saw. Her face said it all. I gave her a look. "That kiss, though." She grinned. "What? You didn't hate it?" I laughed. "You flipped the whole power dynamic in 5 seconds. I'm efficient like that." Something unspoken settled between us then. Not tension, not awkwardness, but awareness. The kind of awareness you feel when a line has been crossed and nobody hurries to redraw it. I finally asked, "Why'd you even come today?" She blinked but didn't look away. "Because I've seen too many good men get buried in bad stories. You were about to be one of them." I swallowed. "You could have said no, could have stayed out of it." "I could have," she said. "But watching someone take their voice back, that's a show worth seeing." I stared at her, words failing me. She saved me again. "Plus," she added with a stretch, "that was badass and you know it." We both laughed, the kind of laugh you don't need translated. Later that night, after she left, I sat by the window with a cup of decaf, staring out over the rooftops. And it hit me. This wasn't just about her cheating. It was about how long I let it happen. How long I begged for scraps and dared to call it love. How long I excused someone who used affection like a leash. Not anymore. The leash was gone. The door was shut. And for the first time in years, the man in the mirror looked proud. Not angry, not bitter, just at peace. I didn't expect the call. A week later, I'd finally started breathing without waiting for the next blow. Sleeping through the night. Actually tasting my morning coffee instead of just swallowing it down. Ellie and I had hung out again. No drama, no Vanessa-shaped shadow, just two people laughing on a rooftop with nothing to prove. Then my phone rang, blocked number. I stared at the screen, thumb hovering over decline. But something, maybe curiosity, maybe the faint ghost of what once was, made me answer. Hello? A pause. Then her voice. Ryan. Vanessa. The name hit like a ghost. I stayed silent. Please, she rushed. Don't hang up. I need to talk to you. My voice came out flat. There's nothing left to say. I know, she whispered, voice trembling. I know I screwed up. I didn't think you'd actually go through with it. And there it was. Not regret, not apology, just disbelief. It wasn't that she had destroyed me. The truth was, I had finally stopped giving her the chance to try. I'm not calling to fight, she murmured, her voice trembling around the edges. I screwed up. Badly. And I finally get it now. I miss you. The silence between us felt thick, almost alive, pressing in from all sides. I could hear her uneven breathing, waiting, hoping for me to throw her some kind of rope. But there was nothing left to give. I don't hate you, Vanessa, I said quietly. She exhaled, a sound halfway between relief and exhaustion. But I don't need you anymore either. The weight of those words landed heavier than I expected. Her soft sobs filtered through the line, muffled but raw. You moved on so fast, she whispered. No, I said, my voice low but steady. I just stopped standing still. The silence stretched again before she broke it, desperation creeping back in. Please, come back, we can fix this. My eyes drifted around the apartment, microphone unplugged for the night, Ellie's scarf still draped over the chair, the faint scent of last night's takeout lingering in the air. In the window's reflection, I caught my own gaze, clearer than I'd ever seen it. My shoulders straightened, and for the first time in years I felt something unexpected. Pity. I'm sorry, I said softly, but it's too late. And I ended the call. For a while I just sat there letting the quiet settle, not as an emptiness but as a gift. Sometimes the most powerful words you can give someone aren't I love you. Sometimes they're I'm done. And I meant it, every syllable. Ellie showed up around 9 that night. She kicked off her shoes like she'd been living there forever, grabbed 2 beers from the fridge without asking. You good? She asked, scanning my face like she could map out every turn I'd taken to get here. Yeah, I said. She called. Ellie raised an eyebrow. I shook my head. She didn't say anything right away, just smiled, a slow, wicked little grin curling at the edges, like she'd been waiting for that moment all along. Good, she said finally, because I wasn't planning on sharing my beer. We clinked bottles and that was it. No grand speeches, no cinematic kiss, just quiet victory. And it tasted sweeter than anything Vanessa had ever given me. Sunday morning came draped in sunlight, soft streaks slipping through dusty blinds, making the world seem gentler than it really was. I stood at Mike's kitchen counter brewing coffee, the smell curling through the apartment like an old friend. Ellie hummed in the other room, some tune she was probably making up on the spot. And for the first time in longer than I could remember, I felt whole. Not patched up, not pretending, whole. The phone rang again, this time no blocked number, Vanessa. I stared at the screen. No dread, no anger, nothing at all. Still, I answered, one last time. Her voice sounded different now, frayed, hollow, cracked around the edges. Ryan, she breathed, please. I know I ruined everything. I know I lost you, but I can't sleep. I barely eat. I just keep staring at the door, waiting for you to come back. I didn't think you'd actually leave." I stayed silent. She kept talking. "I thought we had more time. I thought you'd always wait. And now I see I was wrong about everything. I'm sorry. I'm so sorry. Please, just say something." I inhaled slowly, my eyes wandering to the hallway where Ellie's humming had gone quiet. My mind flickered back to the apartment I used to share with Vanessa. Cold floors, fake smiles, silence wielded like a weapon. Then I looked around this place, messy, loud, cluttered with Ellie's presence, yet somehow lighter because of it. The contrast couldn't have been clearer. "I hope you find what you're looking for," I said evenly. "You're what I'm looking for," she whispered. "No," I replied. "I was what you assumed would stay. There's a difference." A pause, then soft and trembling. "So, that's it?" I glanced toward the doorway. Ellie stood there, hair tousled, coffee mug in hand. She didn't ask who was on the phone. She didn't have to. That half smile of hers said she already knew the answer. "That's it," I said and ended the call. Ellie stepped into the kitchen, her socked feet soft against the tile. "Everything okay?" she asked. "Better than okay." I poured her coffee first, handed it over. She took a sip, peering at me over the rim. "You look lighter," she said. "Probably because I finally dropped the dead weight." She grinned. "That'll do it." We ate breakfast at the tiny table by the window, just eggs, toast, and whatever peace tastes like after a storm has passed. Outside, the city carried on. Horns, birds, stray conversations drifting up from the street below. But inside, everything was still, easy. And that's how it ends. Not with fireworks or revenge or some sweeping romantic gesture, but with two people sharing breakfast in the morning light, quietly understanding that healing doesn't always look like a celebration. Sometimes healing looks like stillness. Sometimes it sounds like silence. And sometimes it feels like a warm mug of coffee in your hands, and no apologies left to give. Our story ends here. Tell me what you felt in the comments. And if this resonated with you, there are more stories waiting for you on the channel. Until next time, friend.